it's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
The summer is rolling on and flying by as we get ready for a new NHL season. It's getting closer every day, but welcome to the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gause, joined by my co-hosts, Michael Trakos and Ryan Kennedy. And guys, there's lots of excitement building around this upcoming season, but something else we have to look forward to in this new year of hockey is going to be the Olympic Games. The 2026 Winter Olympics are coming. Milano Cortina hosting those, and we're excited. So there's not a ton of NHL news right now, which gives us the opportunity to talk a little bit about those Olympic Games. We obviously know the first six for a lot of these teams, but what are the rest of the rosters going to look like? Who are the favorites? We're going to get into all of that starting right now. But I want to point out that you guys got the memo of wearing red, white, and blue.
Oh my
so I didn't know that we were already just cheering for USA. So I appreciate that. So thank you for doing that. No, I know we are.
This is a light blue.
Sorry, you're right. Okay, we got it. But let's dive in with a team that I know that you guys will definitely be cheering for, and that's Team Canada. Obviously, they won the Four Nations. So how different maybe is this Olympic roster going to look? Because the squad at Four Nations certainly was quite formidable. They did a great job winning the tournament. Let's dive in, talk a little bit about what differences we might see. Who would you add, or maybe who's fighting for a spot? We obviously know the six named already are McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, Point, Reinhart, and Makar. So, Michael, kick it off for us. Just talk a little bit about what differences we could see in this roster, or are they going to be rolling out a pretty similar group?
You know what? I could actually see Canada rolling out a fairly similar roster. And why would you change things? Like, Katie, Canada had the US's number at the Four Nations, so you don't have to make that many big changes. And it's not like a lot of guys are going to age out. I know there's probably going to be a lot of talk about whether Brad Marchand is still capable. Well, we just saw the playoffs, and Ryan and I were witness to it. Brad Marchand looks just as good this year as he's done in the past. And the thing with Sidney Crosby, I don't see a whole lot of change there. But just on the forward group, the one guy I could see getting replaced is Mark Stone. And, there was a lot of talk about whether Mark Scheifele should have been on that roster for the Four Nations. I think they're going to give him every opportunity, or they should give him every opportunity, because, Scheifele had a tremendous season. And I think if you're going to look at one spot among the forwards, swapping Scheifele for Stone makes a lot of sense.
All right, Ryan, what do you see in terms of maybe players you're keeping your eye on, things that they could add, or maybe one little thing they could be looking to improve?
Yeah, I think I agree with the Konechny assessment. I'd like to see Macklin Celebrini get a shot. I know he's so young, but he's already been on a team with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. He played at the World Championship for Canada in the springtime. And he's just so advanced as a two-way player that I think it really gives him an advantage. It would be some youthful exuberance as well. I'm also looking at the blue line, and, Mike, you talked about guys that might be a little older. Drew Doughty, he put in so much work to come back from that ankle injury just to play in the Four Nations. And it was very admirable, and I thought he played well for Canada. But you do have to forecast and say, like, okay, well, what does Drew Doughty look like, 6 months from now? And, is he still in the mix? I'm sure he'll put forth his best effort. But if it's not Drew Doughty, what about Aaron Ekblad? Also a right shot. Obviously lots of big game experience. He was fantastic for Florida in this most recent Stanley Cup run. So I think that could be an interesting option. And then, you think about like guys like Shea Theodore, who was on the Four Nations team but got injured early. So Canada will have him hypothetically back at full strength. You think about Thomas Harley, who came in as an injury replacement and was incredible on the blue line for Canada. So you figure he'll have a bigger role. So it will be interesting to see what that final roster looks like. But I mean, tons of weapons.
I wonder, that's an interesting point you make about Macklin Celebrini, Ryan, because there weren't a whole lot of young guys on this team. Like usually you bring one on the Four Nations team. Usually you bring a young guy around so that he'd had the experience and then can make an impact at the Olympics. And I think, in the back of my mind, Connor Bedard would have been the perfect fit. But, celebrating probably past Bedard when you're talking about who has a better chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially when you consider, like you mentioned, Ryan, the fact that now he has some experience internationally with guys like Crosby and McKinnon, and it seemed like did pretty well in that environment. So it kind of does feel like he has, at least for the time being, bypassed Bedard, but we'll see. How about in net? Obviously, Jordan Binnington coming in, and big games. He showed up. It's like he just turns it on in some way for the most important moments, but it wasn't the perfect tournament leading up to that point. Does he still have the inside track on being the number one guy and being the go-to guy for Team Canada? And I guess who would your other two choices be to help him?
Mm-hmm. I think he's got to have the inside track at this point. His GM, Doug Armstrong, is also with Hockey Canada, and clearly John Cooper trusts him based on the Four Nations. Like Binnington played every game.
Yep.
It's interesting because I would probably just kind of make it a meritocracy for the other two spots. Like you have Adin Hill, you have Logan Thompson, you have Sam Montembeault. Montembeault was fantastic in the second half for Montreal. Adin Hill and Logan Thompson, pretty much great throughout the seasons. Adin Hill has won a Stanley Cup. So I don't think you can go wrong with those options. I guess the only question is, do any of those players see a game in the Olympics? Right? Like you have those round robin games and then you go right to playoffs. I mean, you hope if you're Canada that you finish first in the pool and then you get a bye for the playoff round. But it's always tricky juggling goaltenders because, what if Binnington kind of loses his edge at some point? Then who do you go to? Right? For me, it's nice to have that sort of security of knowing who your second guy will be. So it'll be interesting to see how Canada deploys their netminders in Milan.
Yeah, this was supposed to be Canada's Achilles heel going into the Four Nations. Is that they didn't have the same level of goaltending that the U.S. had. But then, big game Binnington just keeps, he keeps winning when it matters. So I don't think there's that same level of, trust or worry when it comes to Canada's goaltending. As Ryan mentioned, what they may lack in star power, they make up with in Stanley Cup wins. And, Logan Thompson, I think, was the one kind of snub that everyone was looking at. But really, if Binnington's going to play all the games, does it really matter if he's, if you've got Logan Thompson as your backup, if you've got Darcy Kemper, or if you've got Adin Hill? It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you've got that guy you can trust, you can go to. It'll be interesting, like you said, Ryan, how they manage them in order to give themselves the best chance of getting that bye. Let's talk about Canada's tournament to start. They're in a tough group. They've got the Czechs and Switzerland, France also in there as well. Who out of that group, Michael, do you see as being their toughest opponent?
I think Czechia. Like, part of me wants to say Switzerland because Switzerland is always just a thorn in every team's side. But, when you look at Czechia's roster, I think there's more dangerous forwards up front. You look at how Czechia has played on the world stage of late. Like a couple of years ago, they're winning a world championship. They've got, David Pastrnak, who's always going to be dangerous. So, I don't think Canada's at risk of falling from 1 to 2 in their group. But, if I'm going to look at who's going to maybe, potentially upset them, it could be Czechia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go with the Swiss on this. I do kind of fear them in international competition, and we saw them at the World Championship again this past spring, where they were the silver medalists behind Team USA. Nico Hischier, Roman Josi, Kevin Fiala, Timo Meier, like they've got guys, and they're all familiar with each other. And the Swiss power play internationally tends to click at an absurd rate because it's like the same 5 guys that have played with each other year over year at championships, and they just know each other's tendencies. And like you said, Mike, I mean, the Swiss always tend to up their game. It's a boring game. It's usually a 2-1 victory for them. It's very effective. When you don't have depth, you got to play as a team. So I would be wary of the Swiss in that round robin.
All right, watch out for the Swiss. They're supposed to be neutral, but at international competition, you never know what you're going to
Chaos.
get from them. All right, well, Team USA coming in as world champions for the first time since 1933, and the Olympic roster this year is looking to be even better. However, we know how Four Nations went, so there's going to be some very interesting battles, especially when they eventually face Canada. We hopefully see that. But are they, with what they can bring, the tweaks they can make, and even just based on Four Nations, although they didn't win, are they still the number one favorite in this tournament to you, Ryan?
I think you have to call them the favorite on paper, even though Canada has, I would say, the two best players in the world in McDavid and McKinnon. And then you have what I would say is a top 5 player in history in Sidney Crosby. But you look at Team USA's depth and you look at the high-end players they have in every category, at least on paper, you got to give it to the Americans. And I think that, at the Four Nations, like Charlie McAvoy didn't finish the tournament. Quinn Hughes wasn't there. Those are two of their best defensemen. So you toss them back into the lineup with a Jacob Slavin, a Brock Faber, who was a revelation at the Four Nations. Yeah. And I mean, that's pretty hot just as your blue line. And then of course you have all the weapons up front. Matthews, Eichel, Hughes, the Tkachuk brothers. I will say, though, I don't think this is going to be as rowdy a tournament. It is double IHF rules and officials. So I don't think we're going to see 3 fights in 9 seconds at all.
You're not really supposed to do that when you're in the Olympics. That's right.
Not at all. Yes. And I think, really the only change I might make, one of the big snubs for the Four Nations was Tage Thompson. And I could see a scenario where maybe he replaces like a Vince Trocheck, give you a little more scoring punch. He can play center, obviously, gives you a lot of length as well and size. So, otherwise, I can't really see a lot of changes on the American side.
I kind of see where you're coming from, Ryan, but I almost feel like there's going to be, there were a lot of snubs on the U.S. side. Like I could see Matthew Knies also replacing a Chris Kreider because the U.S.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
I thought that was a great strategy and leaning into the fact that they have the Tkachuks and they have like a JT Miller and, Kreider, when he's, in his prime, he plays that sort of power forward role. But I could see, Matthew Knies replacing him. And if you go with the Tage Thompson, now you're adding a lot of size up front. A couple other guys I wonder, just even on the back end. Lane Hudson was, you're talking about Brock Faber being a revelation. Lane Hudson was a revelation as well. Like, does he sneak his way on to Team USA, even as a number 7 defenseman and kind of working his way into the lineup? Because, how do you say no to a guy that brings that much speed and just is, all eyes are going to be on him as soon as he touches the puck?
So in your mind, then, what would be, you said Kreider there, who are the players that are at risk the most of slipping off of this roster and not making Team USA?
I think on the back end, Noah Hannafin is probably at risk in my mind of, getting swapped out. We'll see with, Adam Fox, didn't have the greatest of seasons last year. It's hard to say, like, would a Norris Trophy winning defenseman not work his way onto Team USA? And it's probably a long shot, but, if I'm going to replace one of those players, it's probably going to be a Noah Hannafin. And, you got to look at Jake Sanderson. You got to maybe look at a Seth Jones. But again, Lane Hudson, if he builds on what he did last year with his Calder winning performance, then again, how do you leave him off the roster?
Yeah. I think my only concern with Hudson would be like in his play in his own end. And you do have a Quinn Hughes who brings you everything that a Lane Hudson does and more. And, Jake Sanderson, similar, but a lot bigger. I am interested in the idea of Hudson maybe being that 7th guy. I just don't know who you take off. I know you said Hannafin, but it's like, he's a big puck mover as well. It's really like one of those like problems you love to have if you're Team USA's brass, but ultimately it is still something you have to decide on.
Yeah, it's a great defense when you're looking at,
Oh yeah.
I know Sweden's got a great defense and it's like there's going to be a lot of big names off that. defense core. But, Team USA, I don't think they've ever had this many talented players on the back end.
For sure.
Yeah. Like you said, Ryan, certainly a problem that you love to have, but you still have to make tough decisions. You have to figure out what is your game going to look like, who suits that best based on what they provide from a blue line standpoint. It will be interesting. Let's talk about the guy behind the defense, the one that is going to be important for USA and heading into Four Nations. This was the other category. They just knocked it out of the park, an abundance of choices for goaltenders. But Connor Hellebuyck, obviously, no secret, struggled during the playoffs in Winnipeg. However, he won the Vezina and the Hart. We know what he's capable of. Is he still your starting goalie for Team USA, or is Jake Ottinger, having made a better case, strong play from him with Dallas during the postseason? Who's between the pipes, Ryan?
Well, Peter DeBoer would say not Ottinger. All
So
jokes aside,
cost of his job.
Too soon. I think you got to give Hellebuyck the chance. I mean, let's remember he beat Canada in the first game of the Four Nations.
Yep.
And
the other one went to overtime.
Yeah, exactly.
Bad. No.
Yeah. And I've said this on the show, this summer previously. I think he's going to figure out some mental aspects of his game when it came to like being on the road in the playoffs. That was obviously, a big issue for him. But I mean,
Right.
yeah, he's the Vezina and Hart winner. Like he's the best goalie in the league right now.
Yeah.
So I think that he'll be able to figure out what he needs to do to be on point in those pressure games. And again, even in the final of the Four Nations, it's not like Canada hung 5 on him. It was a really tight game. So I think it's Hellebuyck's net, but I do also think that, Team USA has the luxury of, they're not in the strongest grouping at the Olympics, so they could play Hellebuyck and Ottinger. And if they see something that's a little off with one of them, then they go with the other one.
Yeah, let's not forget, like playing for Team USA is a lot easier than playing for the Winnipeg Jets. And the reason why Hellebuyck got not only the Vezina but the Hart is because, he was carrying the Jets. And if he has a bad game, boy, the Jets do not look like a world beater. So I think it's a lot easier, especially when you're playing behind that defense. The one guy we're not talking about is Jeremy Swayman, Katie. And Swayman had an awful season by his standards for the Boston Bruins. Now, it was coming off of first year of his contract and a lot of pressure where he didn't have the safety net of having arguably the best, tandem in place. Does a guy like Anthony Stolarz, Ryan, does he maybe sneak his way onto this roster if he comes out guns a-blazing like he did last year with the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because I know it's the third string goalie doesn't matter a whole lot, but maybe Stolarz deserves more of a look than a Swayman would.
I definitely think that one has to be a meritocracy. And, the third goalie's probably not going to play, but what if he needs to, right? Like, I think you have to say to yourself, when you get to that tournament, look at every possible scenario. It's like, are we more comfortable with Anthony Stolarz in net or Jeremy Swayman? So I think that's, a perfectly legitimate question to have. And I mean, if you based it on last season, you would definitely go with Stolarz.
All right. Well, Team USA, like you mentioned earlier, they aren't in the most difficult group, so they do have that flexibility with who's playing, but they do have Germany in their group, who we know has talent, also Denmark, and then Latvia in there. They always just play so hard. They play that team game. It's not pretty, but if they can simplify it and shut down, get some good goaltending, they can be a threat. But who out of the group USA is facing would you say is their most dangerous opponent, Michael?
Yeah, Latvia is a tough one because they're just going to bore you to death and hopefully win 1-0. But
you never know.
I got to say the Germans. Leon Draisaitl's, he's going to be motivated after, watching everyone else play in the Four Nations.
I know.
Obviously, he's a world-class player. They got Moritz Seider back there. They have a strong team. And similar to what Ryan was saying about Switzerland, you could probably apply to Germany because a lot of those guys do play together at world championships. And this is the same group over and over again. And, we see Draisaitl and Others really shine when, these tournaments come around. So, I don't think Germany's going to strike fear in anyone, but they could be one of those dark horse teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fun thing about Germany, too, is they could reunite their old World Junior line of Tim Stützle, JJ Peterka, and Lucas Reichel if they wanted to. They could just trot those guys up as their second line and Draisaitl on the top line. But I'm going to go with Denmark. Very similar to Switzerland in that all the players know each other and have known each other and played with each other internationally for years. They do have some nice high-end elements. You think about a Nikolai Ehlers, you think about Oliver Bjorkstrand, Freddie Anderson in net. Like, they do have some talent there, and they will have players that are not in the NHL, but again, they know each other. And Denmark has been, they've punched above their weight internationally at the Worlds a couple of times. So I would just be a little wary of the Danes and see what they can do. Maybe they can pull off an upset.
I like it. I mean, those upsets, especially for the international teams, because they have such incredible fan bases, even though they're smaller. It's so fun to watch those moments. I mean, we've seen a couple of them recently. What was it? The one that we had, was it Canada with who got upset Canada in the World Championships? Wasn't there a really good one?
Wasn't it Latvia?
Was it Latvia? It might have been, because I think it was one of the biggest upsets. It was. Yeah. So those are incredible moments. And that's what kind of the international play is really all about. Well, let's talk about the other two, if we're putting together the big four. Oh, it was Denmark. It was Denmark.
Oh, it was Denmark. Well, there you go.
It was Denmark.
Be wary of Denmark.
So be wary of Denmark. You were right on it. Okay. Yes. Again, it's so fun to see those moments. Obviously not if you're Canada, but
see too many of those moments at the World Juniors, Katie.
Yeah. The World Juniors ones are incredible. All right. Well, how about Finland and Sweden? They're two other powers that we've got out there. They're in Group B. Who is more dangerous as a gold medal hopeful? And for Sweden, they've already named Kempe, Hedman, Landeskog, Dahlin, Nylander, and Raymond. And Finland, you've got Aho, Barkov, Rantanen, Heiskanen, Lindell, and Saros. So there's some big names already, and we know there's going to be more. Who's kind of your go-to for the gold medal chances for this one?
I like Finland, and I know Finland was really decimated on the back end for the Four Nations, where they were
so many injuries.
Do you have
they
anyone
lost a guy every week.
Yeah, anyone in the NHL who's a defenseman? Are you Finnish? But now
I had a cousin who's from Finland, and I'm having part Finn. Get him on there.
Hopefully Heiskanen's healthy. But even if Finland's defense isn't going to match up as well as Sweden's defense, I really like what Finland has up front. Obviously, Barkov has now won back-to-back cups. We saw what Rantanen did in the playoffs. He has so much more now familiarity playing with his Finnish brethren. So I really like Finland as a total gold medal threat. And, they're just such a hard out in international competitions.
Mm-hmm. I do like the Finns as well. I'm a little worried about goaltending. Whereas with Sweden, I think they have the potential to win gold, but I think they're kind of a boom bust team because they are not deep down the middle. They have some fantastic wingers. And then, you have guys that could play center like William Nylander, but I think a lot of it's going to come down to like how effective is Elias Pettersson? Like, can he play like a number one center like we saw a couple of years ago? Because if he can, that's a big difference maker for the Swedes. Elias Lindholm is another one. Like, can he elevate his game since it has fallen off a bit in the past couple of years? Jacob Markstrom in net, he missed the Four Nations due to injury. Right. And he is a bit of a roller coaster where he can get super hot and be fantastic, or he can kind of collapse. So if Markstrom is on his game, then they will have obviously grade A goaltending. And as you mentioned, Mike, the defense core is absolutely silly. I mean, so many options for the Swedes. It's going to be fun to see what the ultimate list looks like. But I could see, I'm going to say the Swedes have more gold medal potential, but also the potential to not medal at all.
Yeah, Ryan, the Swedes are so weak down the middle that we were joking around the office the other day that Nicholas Backstrom, who's now resuming his career in Sweden, could end up on this roster because they need centers.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
true.
Right. Well, you mentioned it, but they do have good depth options and a strong defensive group forming. Erik Karlsson was not named to Sweden's first six like he was for Four Nations. So, does he make this Olympic squad and join the back end there?
I
I'm
actually
look,
think he
yeah.
will.
You
And
think
the
so, huh?
reason I think he will, I do, and it's for kind of a bad reason that I hate,
Okay.
but I know hockey teams do this. Sweden has almost no right shot defensemen. All their
Mm,
best defensemen are lefties, with the
Mm,
exception of like Erik Karlsson and Rasmus Anderson. And then the next one down would be Adam Larsson, who did not get taken for the Four Nations either. So, I mean, if they're happy having like 5 or 6 left-handed D-men, and I'm totally cool with that, then Karlsson won't make it. But if they want to have the lefty righties, at least on a couple of pairings, they
mm.
kind of need Erik Karlsson.
yeah.
Huh.
If you just forget about the whole lefty righty, the guys that Carlson has to beat out, Philip Broberg, Simon Edvinsson, Marcus Pedersen, I would take any
Mm,
of those three over Erik Karlsson
Mm.
as it stands. Even a guy like
mhm.
Matthias Ekholm, who's probably, he considered a
You
lock
got to
to
have
be on
Echo.
this team.
Yeah.
He's getting a little older now.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, but
So
you got to have Ekholm. He's such a great stopper. And really, he's become a great two-way defenseman in Edmonton. And he really kind of unlocked his offense with the Oilers.
yeah, he just didn't look that great in the Stanley Cup final. And I
How
know
much
he was
of the
coming off an
injury was still
injury,
nagging? Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how old is he now? Like eventually you kind of start falling off. And, if we're talking about international tournament where you're best of the best, like, do you want
Yeah.
him getting wheeled around constantly?
Mm.
Yeah. There will be a lot of speed. He's 35 years old. Shout out to our producer for the quick updates. So yeah, depending on the birthday, could be getting up there by the time the Olympics roll around. But we'll see.
35 years young or old?
Well, I mean, that's my favorite part of doing this is when you're like, he's getting pretty old, and then I'm like, oh, he's 34. Sweet.
Yeah.
He's a
Like,
youngin,
never
eh?
mind.
Still
Easy
a
for us to
decade
say.
younger than I am.
Oh, it's perfect. All right. Well, how about this? Juuse Saros. You talked a little bit about it. The worries with goaltending in net for Finland, and he did get replaced during Four Nations by Kevin Lankinen. What's the concern level? But and is Kevin Lankinen really the only other option? Like, what does that goalie core look like for Team Finland?
I mean, you got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen would be an option as well.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a sense of how good he is because he's been with the Sabres during their fallow period. I am just kind of I'm worried because Juuse Saros is a smaller goaltender and he will be facing, at the high end the best shooters. Like, what does he do against Canada, the USA, even Sweden? Some of Czechia's guys. If they're playing each other like in a medal round game, I get concerned because we haven't seen any playoff success from UC Saros, and we haven't seen that Four Nations success.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a little bit concerning for me. He will have an incredible two-way team in front of him in Finland, like you mentioned, with Barkov and Lundell, and then obviously Heiskanen in that blue line if they are healthy this time.
Mhm.
But it is a point of concern for me for the Finns.
Yeah, it is and it isn't for me because, Lankinen obviously doesn't have the star power as like a UC Saros, but, had
He's
great
6'4".
numbers. What's
Mhm.
that? Sorry?
He's 6'4".
No
He'll
star
take
power.
that.
He's
Yeah.
6'4". That's all that matters to Ryan.
If you're a
Um,
goalie, it cuts. Yeah, I mean, he's a lot bigger than Saros, but
yeah, right now, I would even say
a
like
lot of bad
Lankinen.
big goalies, though.
Lankinen is the better option than Saros, just
Yeah.
because of what he was able to do in Vancouver, basically pushing Artis Silovs out of the net.
Mm.
And like you mentioned, he was the guy that Finland ended up going to when all was said and done at the Four Nations. So, having Lankin and Saros as a tandem, I don't think it's as bad as it might sound on paper. But, ultimately, I think it's going to be like, how good is that defense in front of him? Because, we know the forward group is a great two-way group as well. So hopefully whoever is in net's not facing a ton of rubber.
All right, real quick before we move on to our Olympic rapid fire, who are your 3 medalists? And name one sleeper team you think could crash the podium. Ryan?
Okay, I'm going to go Canada, USA, Finland. And my sleeper team to medal is Switzerland.
All right.
I've got the exact same 3 medalists. I got Canada, US, and Finland, and I'll go Germany with my sleeper.
All right. Well, I want to get in this one because I want to say that my first team for gold would be USA. Then we'll have silver, Canada. I think Finland would be my bronze, but my sleeper team would be Czechia. So
nice.
We'll see what happens. I'm outnumbered. I'm always outnumbered here. That's all right. That's what makes it even more fun. All right, let's get into some rapid fire. But first, remember, if you want to make an Olympic team someday, you don't need to break the bank on sticks when you can get a pro-level composite stick without the pro price tag at stix.com. That's STIX.com. So make sure to go and check it out. All right, here we go. Over under 3.5 goals scored total in the round robin for Italy, who has to play Finland, Sweden, and Slovakia. Ryan?
I'm going to take the under.
No.
Because none of those teams are going to go easy on them, right? Like they're not going to look ahead. So I feel like maybe Italy will get maybe a goal or 2, but getting 1 goal per game or more than that seems a little lofty based on the roster that the Italians are going to have.
I can't
They
name
got the
one.
home ice advantage, though.
Yeah, true. Except none of them have played there before.
Who is Italy's best player? Do they have an NHLer going? Is there one?
I can't think of one. Their first 6 named were one of them was one of the it was Larkin. It was somebody who's American that or that has been playing over there for years. And Damian Clara, the goaltending prospect, I think maybe he's in the mix. He's a Ducks pick. But yeah, I can't name any Italian players.
All right, I'm taking the under.
You
sold me.
So he needed it was an easy sell. All right. Well, good luck to Italy either way. It's going to be awesome for them because it's their home ice and it'll be fun even if they don't get many goals. All right. Who finishes the tournament with more points? Leon Draisaitl or David Pastrnak?
Well, I picked Germany as my dark horse team, so I'm gonna go. I'll go Leon Draisaitl. All this guy does is produce, and even if he doesn't have players that can finish like he does in Edmonton, he's still a great passer. So I'm sure Thomas Hertl or someone else will score some goals.
I'm gonna go with Draisaitl because I think he has more opportunities to pile up some multi-point games, because they'll play Denmark, because they'll play Latvia.
Yeah, true.
That I think he has more chance where Pastrnak, he can feast on France, but then you got Canada and the Swiss who are going to be pretty defensively stout. So I just think Pastrnak won't have the same opportunities to rack up points early on.
Yeah, a couple of those blowout games where everybody's just padding the stats. Pastrnak might not get as many of those. All right. Which defenseman will finish with more points, Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes?
Ooh.
I'm going to say Quinn Hughes for the same reason that I took Draisaitl. I think Team USA will have better opportunities in the round robin to pile up points. And therefore, even if Cale Makar is just as effective as a defenseman, I think Quinn Hughes will have more chances to pile him up early.
I'll go with Makar. I just think Canada has so many options up front that Makar's going to get a lot of assists. And yeah, it's Cale Makar. The guy's just incredible. So yeah, I'll go there. I think it's going to be close.
I'm always going to root for Cale Makar. I mean, again, both of them are going to be involved on the special teams, the power play. There should be a lot of opportunities in those games, again, especially against maybe weaker opponents who are going to have to get caught taking a few penalties. So I'll go with Cale Makar on that one. All right, here's a fun one for you. What should Canada's goal song be? This is the most important thing. What song are you playing? I think we probably already know that USA is going to keep riding with Freebird, I would assume. That's
I would
their
think so.
go-to. That's their go-to now for everything international. So what about Canada?
I'm gonna go Let Me Clear My Throat. This is like
Ooh.
a favorite, from mine amongst like World Junior Canadian teams. I don't know
Yeah.
how much success they had while playing it at the World Juniors, but it just seems like I hear that song and I think, all right, Canada World Juniors.
Nice. I'm gonna go. I think you got to go ultra Canadian. So either like "Take Off" by Rush, which was from the Strange Brew Bob and Doug McKenzie movie, or, and it pains me to say this, but like Nickelback. I think they were playing Nickelback after they won the Four Nations. And I just feel like, you know what? If that's what the boys are rolling with, then like lean into it. The whole thing with Freebird is that it was brought up by the kids on the World Junior team and they wanted it. So if the Canadian guys are listening to Nickelback, then you got to go with it, even if I have to hear it a bunch of times.
Which Nickelback song, though? There's so many good ones.
What's
Is there
a
one
good
called Burn It
Nickelback
Down?
song for goal songs?
I don't know.
Whatever they played in the dressing room after they won the Four Nations.
So many of them are like
we got our production assistant saying "Burn It to the Ground." What do you think?
Animals,
Burn It to the Ground.
Burn It to the Ground would probably be. Yeah.
There you go.
Whatever's just upbeat and intense, and I know. Yeah. Love Nickelback. I get chirped.
I'm gonna go Photograph. Come on.
That would be so depressing. Great jam though. Just probably not the vibe that they're looking for.
Yeah. Only if there's a goal replay.
Yeah. Here's our last one. I did not cheat. Hopefully you guys didn't cheat either. Without looking, what is the mascot for the 2026 Winter Olympics?
It's always like some weird animal, right? So,
I know, like a weird
bear
or.
I'm gonna go with like some sort of like Pillsbury Dough kind of a guy with a chef's hat, like some sort of lean into the whole like we make
Italy
pizza and pasta kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to think what animals live in Italy. I don't even know, especially like in the north where they're gonna hold it. I was like, could it be some kind of like, abominable snowman? But I'm gonna say it's gonna be like an espresso cup with like googly eyes.
That's fantastic.
That's actually pretty good. Is that right?
I don't know. I literally didn't cheat. So we're going to need, I'm going to give my answer. And while I'm doing this, we need our producer to find out what the actual mascot is so that I can do it. But I was going to say like some kind of like penguin-y shaped thing. I don't even know if there are penguins. I don't think there are any penguins. Sometimes there's like the warmer weather penguins versus the cold weather penguins. Okay, wait. I've got the link. I'm clicking it. Let's see. Oh, it's a team. There are two mascots. Their names are Tina and Milo. Milo. I don't know. And they are. It looks like weasels. Ferrets.
Ermines.
They are anthropomorphic stoats.
What is stoats? Which is actually an ermine also. So Ryan, you are correct. It was weird little ermines, Tina and Milo. I love that. Nice. Well, at least they were actually animals, which I picked an animal, and you guys both picked pastry/weird things. So I'm giving myself the win on this. Although I really love the idea of having it been like a cappuccino cup that's just like creepy looking and wanders around.
Yeah.
Fun. All right, guys, that's it. Good stuff. We've got lots to look forward to, obviously, with the Olympics, what the teams will start to look like, and all the other sports that will be going on. The Winter Olympics are it's so much fun. It's some of my favorites. Get to see all the figure skating and everything else. So it'll be good. But thanks so much for giving your thoughts on what we expect to be a very exciting Olympics. And we will be getting back to the action on NHL coming up next week. But that does it for this episode of the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gause, Ryan Kennedy, Michael Tracos, and we will see you all next time.